a granite sign/monument. Actually, you can probably see it on the piece of paper I handed out to you. It'll say, "Welcome to Niantic," engraved in granite, with a loose stacked stone wall pillars on both sides. So that will be the view as you're coming down Pennsylvania Avenue. We'll also be relocating the rotary clock from down by the train tracks to this location right there. There will be a small building for utilities, just like at McCook's, right in this location, because we're going to have water, electricity, we're going to have irrigation, so I have control panels for all that. We're also going to have lighting. What we've decided to do is, it's a cheaper form of lighting using a granite post with a half-moon LED downlight. I think we have 11 or 14 of those. This is a sample of it right there. So rather than having street lights on this property, you'll look over, the whole street will be lit, but you'll look over and there'll be a bunch of downlights. So it'll look very aesthetically pleasing.
Is it going to shine on the Welcome to Niantic thing, or
Yes.
there's an overhang so the lights can?
We're aiming for downlighting right now.
No pun
There's
intended.
going to be
From underneath.
There's going to be a bluestone cap on top of that.
Oh,
We've been looking at strip lighting that goes under the bluestone cap, but in order to light good or well, it needs to be out far.
right. That's
So we're going to run a conduit to down below too. If the strip lighting does not work, we'll put up lighting.
okay. Yeah,
So
Which is more susceptible to vandalism and also, machinery
Tripping.
and
water
stuff.
infiltration. So I prefer the down lighting, but
Yeah.
the up lighting is our second course of
all right.
action.
So you got a plan B if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. We want it to look perfect. That's why we're going with both options. So as you can see, this is a blow-up of the majority of the construction. We have a meandering sidewalk here with concrete pads with benches. We're going to use wrought iron backless benches. The reason we're using backless benches is because we don't know which way people want to face. They may want to face town. They may want to face the ocean. We have 2 granite staircases right here. Up on top, we're using Copthorne concrete pavers. They're a latest generation of concrete pavers. They're excellent. They keep their color for years, as opposed to the majority of concrete pavers people are used to. We went down to Branford and looked at an 8-year-old installation, and it looked fantastic. In the center, we have a bluestone pavers here. There's been a lot of debate about what should go in the center of this, an emblem, a fountain, everything. So what we've done is we've left it open for the future. We can leave the bluestone pavers there, or in the future, we can change it and put something else. I'll run conduits over there, so in the future, if we need electricity or water, we have that ability. They'll just be underground. Obviously, there are trees intermingled here. They're actually set back from the road, as opposed to all the other trees on Main Street, because we want a full view of the clock as you're coming down from both directions of Main Street. You can see the lights, the concrete posts with the lights on them are intermingled. They're up top here, and they're also along the walkways.
So there'd be a gentle glow about the park, but not a shine. We're not lighting heavy from above, but just a glow on the walkways to keep it safe.
We need a lot of topsoil. This is actually a very big site. We still have all the leftover topsoil from the high school athletic complex. So we've screened that. We're going to reuse it all.
We still have the football field.
We've been using it. We've been using it for years. It's been fantastic. It's worth a fortune. Now the fence back there is horrible. That's Amtrak's fence. We're going to put up our own 6-foot black chain link fence on our property, and then pay Amtrak to take theirs down. Believe it or not, the black chain link fence, which is one of the cheapest fences you can buy, is actually the best fence to look through visibly. So that never happens. Cheap and the best. This is the only situation I think that's happened in the last couple months. The whole site is going to be irrigated. Am I missing anything else, Mark?
No, Bill and I ran into each other, and we talked about this terrace, and why does it need to be there? And I think that's a good question.
What do you mean by terrace?
And by terrace, I mean that brick
the
middle,
front.
the semicircle. Why is that there?
Oh.
Why is it 2 steps to get up? Well, as you're coming down Penn Ave, what you're going to see, and if you were to sit in the park at ground level, if we just put benches there in a walkway, you'd be looking into the railroad bed. You'd never see water. So, because it's about 2 or 3 feet up. We don't want anything blocking. We didn't put the terrace up and then put a gate around it. We were able to engineer it, and there'll be a lip on it. But we wanted you to be able to see the water. That was the whole point of this park, is to have a window to the water. But when you're in the park, we want you to be able to see over everything, and that's why that terrace is there. We also think, and the landscape architect really kind of emphasized this, that this will be a gathering spot. That this will, because with the terrace, will bring people in. That this will be the spot. It might be used at some of the functions we use in town to celebrate East Lyme and the holiday parades and all that. But it will also just be the spot people might gather. You might go grab your coffee across the street and come to that very spot.
I have a question, Mark.
Yes.
I know there's been some questions of why there's no parking there.
Oh, good question. So it was originally thought that we'd have some parking there, maybe up to 10 spaces. The committee decided first of all, we did an extensive study. There's plenty of parking downtown. If you take a Google Earth picture, look at Google Earth, there's a lot of asphalt downtown. Now, some of it's in private, some of it's in churches and banks that are closed at night and in the twilight hours, and certainly on Sundays. And churches that are open on Sundays aren't open during the week. There's plenty of parking downtown. And we are a downtown that, we're encouraging pedestrians down there, not a place to park. This isn't a type of park that you would drive to. It's not a destination park. It's not like even McCook's, where it's a destination, or Bridebrook. This is a place where it's an extension of Main Street. It might be an extension of the loop, the boardwalk. A lot of people walking the boardwalk and then come back up onto Main Street and make the loop that way. That'll be a part of that. I'll also point out the Liberty Green, where our veterans are celebrated twice a year, and it is really the only downtown park, also does not have parking. So there is some parking to the left of, as you're looking at this park.
That whole area.
There's some parking to the left. That land is not owned by us. That land is owned by Amtrak and the state. We could, and the other point is, could we chop off some of this and make it parking? The state will not allow us to create a parking lot that backs into the street. We'd have to create a parking lot that's wide enough that you can pull out of a space and go out forward. So that kind of takes away that side of the park. Currently, those parking spaces do that you have to back into the state highway. However, they're not even really officially spaces. We've just kind of morphed into that. It becomes spaces over the years. So it's a good question. We think there's plenty of parking downtown. We don't think this is a parking or a car generator. This is an extension of Main Street and an enhancement to the views of Main Street and the quality of Main Street.
You probably already thought about this with fences, but for the chain link, you're going to go with black versus gray. You have more visibility with black.
Black actually looks much better. You can
Well,
see through it.
You can see through it better?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're using black on the boardwalk, as you know. It's a black chain link
Right,
fence
but
there.
on the boardwalk, you're not looking through it. You're already on the other side. So I just didn't know
True.
which color would lend itself to more
Right.
transparency to the
Well, actually,
store.
when you're at Skipper's, you're looking through the chain link fence, and so you don't even notice it. They originally thought there was going to be a huge problem, and as soon as it was up, there was no problem.
Question, will the park close in the evening or sunset as the other parks in town do? Have we thought about that plan?
I don't believe so. I think it's just going to be an extension of Main
there.
Street.
I think it's just,
just
it's a
there.
wider sidewalk, if you will. It's, it doesn't have its own entrance. It doesn't have parking. I think it's just,
Okay.
a
Makes
place to
sense.
go.
Yeah.
That is visible enough that the police will take notice.
Mhm.
It's right there.
Yeah, that's great.
So we're looking to transfer 71,000 or 70,000, and the cost of the rest of this is 250. Of the whole thing is 250,
The
right?
250, correct.
So that's one something. I didn't do the math. Whatever it is, 170 or whatever
Right. So all these different things on your agenda, items on your agenda are morphing together. So we could talk about that based on the question. We're also going to be selling etched bricks, of which there's already a waiting list. That Terry Smith is taking names. That we propose we'll make about $80,000 on etched bricks. We're not going to brick the whole thing. In fact, we want to keep it to a finite number and keep the place classy and not look like a billboard. But Bill will show you where the bricks are going to be.
Around the semicircular right here, they're actually granite bricks. They're not regular bricks.
They're gray granite.
Engraved granite bricks, so these are going to look very, very nice. There's 138 going around this way, 4x8 bricks, which is regular brick size, and there are 99 8x8 going along the back here. So it's just the right amount to look nice and not be overpowering.
So we'd have to bond money for the balance of this, right? I
So,
know that's our next item.
I'll
I
get
wanna
to the next
understand
item.
the next item.
The beauty of all this that we've seen tonight is I'm not going to be we all aren't going back to the taxpayers asking for any more money.
What about the bonding piece?
That's already been bonded. That was part of the original purchase of the park. That money is sitting in an account right now. We just want to reallocate it for the development of the park instead of the purchase of the park.
Go ahead.
But you still have the puzzle on your face, so I want to make
A
sure I'm
little bit.
clear on that question before. So that 139 is left over from the original 2010 referendum where we said was it 740,000 the taxpayers approved to go out and buy this land and remediate it and condition it for the use of the town. What we want to do is take the money we saved.
'Cause
We
bought the
saved money.
property
We
for
bought
what,
the
550 or
bought the building on the cheap.
was it 550?
525, 550. Yeah,
It said 550 in the paper.
550.
Yeah.
Okay,
Don't
so we
forget
have
we-
190 we hadn't spent.
but we also had to do testing. We did pit testing before we bought the property, and then also after we bought the property. So that is the balance. We have $139,000 is the balance. It's also there because we were able to qualify for a brownfield grant, which paid for the majority of the cleanup on the property. So we had the state come in and pay for that.
So some of our remediation costs that we thought we were gonna have, the state paid for that, and that's where some of this overage comes from.
That's right.
Okay, so before we move on to the, adding these two
Yeah,
things together, and I
right.
like the idea of adding these two things together so that we get a comprehensive view of it. Are there any other questions about the actual park itself or the landscaping, anything like that? Because I did have one question. I do like the way it looks, and I think it looks all very nice and very, modern, but also kind of, anyway. My only
Well,
question.
special attention was put in to make sure it fits and it doesn't look too new, too contemporary. Yeah.
Yes, and artistically and aesthetically and everything just looks good.
Good.
I look at this elevation and I ask myself, has somebody talked to somebody in safety or somebody that's got a law degree to say, I've got this, what's the elevation of the,
One side has 4 steps, one side has 3 steps. You're
So
talking
when-
about, well, there's also plantings on the bottom and on the top. So you wouldn't be walking right up to the edge. There's a small garden before you get to the edge.
so when I'm in the center section here, I'm not inclined to accidentally step over the edge because there's plantings all the way around.
Plantings here, all the way around right here.
And that's at the elevation, or is that
That's
below
at-
the elevation?
That's at the high elevation. Then there's the drop off, which is right here, is 2.5 feet is the maximum, and there's plantings down below here too.
I'm
That's a
just
good
concerned
question.
about OSHA kind of, I mean, that's not OSHA,
Right.
it's not OSHA,
No, it's
but
liability,
safety.
though.
Whoever
Right.
it is that covers town safety, have they looked at this and said,
Yes.
we're not concerned?
No, but I
That's-
think that's a good
good point.
question. So the plantings are at grade with the stone, right? So there's no,
They're up here.
right, but if you're standing on the stone and they're at grade up there, there's no barrier, I'm thinking ahead.
Right.
There's no barrier to prevent somebody from walking through the bed with the trees and falling off, is there?
They'd have to go through the gardens to go get to the edge.
But if I'm standing there watching the fireworks and I'm going like, ooh, ah, and I'm backing up, I could step over the edge if I
I mean,
was,
now's the time to ask the question.
if I was in old clips like I am, If you've done, if you've talked to the people that cover that
Yes.
type of safety issue, then I'm done. I just wanted to hear that, yes,
Yes.
we've taken that into consideration, we've done our job, and it seemed to me like something that I had to ask, so. You've looked at it, the right people have looked at it, and I'm fine. Okay,
One other question. Wheelchair access.
Yeah. So down below, you see this meandering sidewalk?
Yep.
That's a wheelchair ramp that goes right up to the.
Is that right, where your red dot is there?
Yes.
Where the red is. That's the wheelchair access to the terrace.
So the
And of course,
terrace-
because it's a public facility,
Right,
we'll always,
absolutely.
always be mindful of that.
so the terrace and the ground have two different grades, so that they kind of,
Right. Right.
okay. Any other questions about the facility or the landscaping or anything like that before we start adding up the numbers? Okay. So I am going to, procedurally, I don't know how to talk about C without closing B, but I'm gonna talk about C, the special appropriation as it, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm gonna talk about the special appropriation for 139.52 as it applies to agenda item B, and I think that's the way I can legally do it. And if not, so be it. All right, so what we're saying here is that the next agenda item that we have is going to, if approved, bring forward 139,522 from a brownfield grant to augment this motion that we have before us now, and those two combined covers all expenses to complete this?
Mr. Chair, it's not a brownfield grant. That remains separate. It's a state project that, it's the money left over from the purchase
Okay.
and the remediation. It is town money that's already been appropriated,
Okay,
bonded.
yes.
And because
But it was earmarked for
it needs to be
brown.
reallocated.
Yeah, it was initially earmarked for the brownfield remediation, and the state paid for that,
It
or
paid-
some
right,
portion of
right,
it.
right.
So this is extra budget
Yeah.
that.
Just want to
we
be
wanna
clear
put-
on that.
Okay, you're
It
right,
is
I'm wrong.
taxpayer,
Yep.
it's East Lyme taxpayers, this is their portion of it, 139, that's already been bonded, already approved,
Okay.
not allocated for the, now hoping to be allocated for the development of the
So
actual
my
park.
question is, and I think part of Lisa's question was.
Yes.
Do these two things add up to the total cost of that, remaining total cost?
$250 is what we anticipate needing to build the park in its entirety. That adds up to 209, and the remaining amount will either come out of that first 500,000. Remember, we have the park on there. If we can get it out of there, all the better. The first steep grant that we approved tonight.
And the bricks were how much? 40,000?
We anticipate $80,000 of income.
Fundraising 80,000 for
Right.
that, so that's gonna be more than enough to close the gap.
Right.
If they're all sold, and I think they're all gonna.
And so the next question that Mrs. Picarazzi would have is, well, wait a minute, that adds up to more than 250. So you're going to build a gold palace here. No, what we'd like to do is spend the 80. We'll spend the entire 80,000. And if we don't spend all the 139,000, which is in your item C, we'll take that money and buy down the debt on this bond that we've already had. We'll reinvest the money. We'll put that back in.
As opposed to putting something in that white circle.
Yeah, that was a design issue. We could do that. I guess we could come back and talk about that. We have no plans on that. We're going to put bluestone in there right now. I mean, we talked about water fountain. We talked about a statue of
Okay.
the Board of Finance.
So moved.
What does the word brownfield mean?
It's the industry term for pollution cleanup. Superfund stuff.
The oil that would have been potentially left over from the gas station.
Yeah.
The gas.
In this
the
case,
ground
it's
and-
all the uses of that property.
yeah, chemicals.
And that's the other, don't forget, that's the other benefit that we got out of this. We had a polluted site on the water, on our main street, but on the water, which would potentially leak into the ground and into the water we all swim in. That also is getting fixed by this whole process. It's already in the process of being done. That was part of the 2010 purchase of the properties to the cleanup. But that's another benefit here, is not only aesthetically, it's cleaning up our property.
Okay.
So we have 139 left over from the
From
grant.
bond.
I
From
need
the
to-
bond,
From the bond.
from the bond.
We have 70 from the steep grant. So that's 200, right? Give or take,
Well, 140 and 70. It's 210.
210. The cost is 250, and we're saying the $40,000 gap is gonna be made up by selling bricks.
Bricks.
Is that what we're saying?
Well, yes. We're saying 40 will bricks, and if we can sell all the bricks, and if our plans hold true, that we actually be $40,000 to the better. And what we'll do is end up only taking 100,000 out of the 139.
So how, I don't know how to say this gently, but how can we, I really wanna ensure that we pay that bond down if we can. How do we make sure that happens?
And just put it on the record that we're not putting anything else into this park other than what is on this list right here. We're not putting statues and water fountains. We're going to build this. We're going to build it right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying any of
And-
that stuff can't happen, but I think
Yeah.
the first obligation is to pay the bond down.
Agreed.
So if these two vehicles together add up to 210, if the bricks for whatever reason don't come home, how are we gonna close that $40,000
Love
gap?
that question.
Oh, we're gonna get at least 40,000 of the bricks, and don't forget well, potentially could be $75,000 coming from the dinghy dock bathroom steep grant. We could get some money off of that, and ideally, if that could all be built at 400,000, I have 100 left over. Then I don't need any of this 140. If we sell all the bricks, and we'll take the full 140 and pay down the bond.
Okay, so,
We just want our flexibility so we can get moving on it. I need to go out to bid, but I need the money in place to go out to bid, and I need to start ordering material.
okay, so if the bricks don't sell for 80,000, and if the dinghy docks come in over budget, so we don't have any money from there, is there a point in this project that we can stop with $40,000 still of work not done? Yes, I'm playing devil's advocate, worst case scenario. But would
you go on record.
would we just not do something if that was the case?
I think we need to build this in its entirety, and I
But
think
you're asking the right question.
So,
But yeah, absolutely.
okay, so my
what do we
question,
do?
let me reword the question. If we didn't have that 40, I understand it's very unlikely, given the fact that we think we may have $75,000 surplus, and we think we have a potential $80,000 income from the bricks. So potentially, there's 3 times, 4 times more than that $40,000 available. But my question would be, I think, if we didn't, for whatever reason, have that $40,000, because the bathroom costs more, because whatever, would we be inclined to not do some scope on this park, or would we come back to the board and say, we need to take another $40,000 from somewhere else? Or is that a decision that we're gonna have to make later?
We've actually considered using town forces. There's no contingency on that number, if you'll notice that, because we have the ability, our town forces can do some of this work. Obviously, they have their own jobs to do, but if we have to, we can pull town forces away and do part of this work to handle a shortfall.
Or hit the Parks and Rec special revenue account, right, Dave?
That's what some of it's there for. I mean,
Okay, so it sounds to me like we got 4
We're
different
going into this
contingency
with a
plans.
bunch of pots of money, and I feel
Okay.
pretty good about it.
Okay.
Normally, I'm going into it with way less than this.
Okay, I think I'm confident that the town's not gonna be holding the bag for $40,000 of unfunded scope, and that's also, I guess, I think I wanted to hear. Okay.
Good.
So as far as the first motion or the first allocation of 70,000 and change for the steep grant, is there any more conversation that we want to have about that agenda item? Hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion.
The motion, reallocation of $70,000, $227.67, remaining funding from the Phase 3 Streetscape Steep Grant for Public Park Construction, 224 Main Street, former mobile station property.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more conversation about the reallocation of the 70,000 and change steep grant?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved, 5-0.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Do you want to take their orders now for the bricks?
How much are the bricks?
Yeah, how much are they?
Is there a price per brick already earmarked?
I think 250 to 300 for the smaller and 500 for the larger ones.
So Lisa's gonna take 4.
Yeah, I'll write you a check.
Okay. All right.
And
Thank
keep-
you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
That's,
Thank you for
that's
your help.
been working so
Thanks for
hard for
coming.
this. Item C on the agenda is the
Oh.
special allocation, of 1,039,522 reallocation that was for the brownfield remediation to move to the construction of the park. So do we have any more conversation about agenda item C? Are we all okay? We understand what we're doing and we're okay with what we're doing and we're not concerned about any other items?
I've already aired my concern.
Okay. So I would like to accept a motion or entertain a motion for special allocation of 139,522.
So it's on the sheet,
Yeah.
that says extra for minutes of meeting for at the bottom or towards the top.
The actual motion
It's a
has to be
res- yeah,
worded
It's a
like
resolution versus a motion.
that. Okay. So is there a person that would like to make the resolution as identified on the back of our package here?
I will.
Okay?
Resolve that the resolution entitled, quote, "Resolution making an appropriation in the amount of $139,522 for brownfield remediation and construction of park improvements, and authorizing the issuance of 139,522 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose," unquote, a copy of which is attached hereto, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the legal voters of the town at town meeting.
I have a motion for the said resolution, resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any more conversations about the resolution in front of us?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved, 5-0.
This will all come to town meeting next week, and if you do support this park, I hope that you also support it at the town meeting.
Just gonna have to hire a contractor to do it cheap.
Do it inexpensively.
Yeah, inexpensively, I should say. Value engineered.
Are we doing this, or is it going to bid?
It's going to bid. Or we're going to do some of the work ourselves, and we're going to have to go to bid for some of it, yes. And that's, don't forget there's state money involved here too, so we have to go under the tightest guidelines, as Bill.
Yeah, that's why I started out.
Yeah.
It's gotta be
We'll be the
approachable.
general contractor, so it's gonna be a little different.
Oh, you're gonna
It's
sub
not
it.
be one whole
Yeah, I got you.
thing. We'll act as GC.
Yep.
Jason's gonna donate some of his time.
Thank you,
Always
Jason.
done.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank
In
you.
anticipation, thank you.
All right, the next agenda item is the calendar that we approved last week, or last month, I'm sorry. There's some debate around the February 14th date because that's Ash Wednesday, and there's some concern that board members and town members may be at service that night.